Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an especially amazing day it is. We are just moments away from Kash Patel's swearing in, and we've been waiting for this one for quite some time. And of course, in addition to Kash, it is also a beautiful Friday. We made it through another very busy week. We had a bunch of TRO type of proceedings that we unpacked this week, and we've got a couple more. Two very good rulings that just came down out of the DC circuit. We're going to unpack both of those, but right now we're waiting for Kash Patel to be sworn in, and this is what it looks like over on scene. You can see we got a full room in the house. As we're waiting for Kash to enter, we got a little bit of audio that is in the room. Murmurs. Bunch of nervous FBI agents out there all across America. Shredders are going wild right now. Emails being deleted. Clicks on the mouse and the keyboard, keystrokes. Delete, delete, delete. All over the place. And we're excited to undelete the deleted. So, this is happening. They have it scheduled for 3 o'clock. We'll keep our eye on it. And we'll see what's happening. But, you know, these things can sometimes be a little bit slow to develop. I did see in there I saw Jim Jordan. I think this is Jim Jordan right here. Let me move my head out of the way. Is that? No, maybe not. I saw Jim somewhere today as we were waiting for the clock to count down over here. I think I saw Sebastian Gorka was in the room and others. So people are probably still piling in. So what we'll do is we'll pop this puppy out and we'll check in on a couple of other things because we do have some very good business to attend to, and especially out of the DC circuit. So let's talk about what else is happening. We've got President Trump today was out there, Pam Bondi making headlines, and we're waiting for Kash Patel. But here was a major headline from Pam Bondi, whom we might see here in a minute. She said this earlier over on Fox News, and it's a big one, saying that she's got the Epstein files on her desk, and she is going to be releasing those in due course.
Maybe releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
All right, so good stuff. And that clip is flying around right now all over X. A lot of people resharing that, so that's good news. Now, we'll see what ultimately comes of that, or when it comes. Might be contingent upon Kash Patel coming in and giving us the thumbs up on that one. But we also saw today, President Trump is not playing around. He was there at the Republican Governors Association, and of course, he wants his administration's orders to be followed. And the governor of Maine, who is called Janet Mills, a Democrat, is refusing to abide by the executive orders coming from Trump. And it got a little bit spicy there today. Here is what that sounded like at the White House.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law.
Yeah.
Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. No. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Janet trying to talk smack against the will of the American people, saying we'll see you in court. Yeah, we'll see you in court. Not a problem. We've got plenty of other court proceedings that we are emerging on victoriously. So we'll talk about those in a quick second. But we also wanted to have a quick update on the Supreme Court. This was a case we were covering a lot this week, waiting to see if there's even a smidgen of activity from a Supreme Court justice. And it doesn't look like there is. Previously this week, we talked about this battle between Hampton Dellinger, the fired special counsel, courtesy of President Trump, fired him immediately. Then Amy Berman Jackson shoved him back in there. Now we're knocking on the door of the Supreme Court. Yesterday, we covered the other woman, I think her name, forget it, doesn't really matter, but she was also shoved back into another position from another judge. And so we're going to see if those get consolidated or if the Supreme Court comes out. Of course, it's Friday. And so sometimes they drop things right before the close of the week. So we'll wait for that. Nothing has come out on that one yet. But we still have plenty of other updates to attend to. So let's see where we're at on here. We might just jump in and start covering one of these things and wait for some activity. Let's see. We are live here. We got friends from Scotland in the house. Hey, shout out to our friends in Scotland. How cool is that? Thank you, Xander, for saying that. Cool. All right, so we'll keep our eye on this. Oh, there's Jim Jordan. I saw him poking out right back there. All right, so we'll keep our eye on this one. But in the meantime, there have been some really good drops today. And one just came out of the oven. And so I will keep this over here. And as soon as there's activity there, we'll pop that out and get back to it. And we won't miss a thing, probably. But let's talk about what else is happening, because there was a very good update today. In this case, we have here the Trump administration wins a big one. You can see this case came down out of the court of Judge Carl J. Nichols, District of Columbia judge that Trump appointed in the case brought against the administration from the American Foreign Service and other entities suing Trump to stop all the USAID cuts. Remember, Trump said it's all getting eliminated. It's going bye-bye. I'm the president. I have the power over foreign affairs. We're in control of the State Department. Cuts happened quickly. They sued, and what's interesting about this, we have a very good ruling that just came out today, but this judge, Judge Carl J. Nichols, who was terrible on the January 6 cases, granted the people who sued Trump, we'll call them the unions, the American Foreign Service Union, so the USAID people, they got a TRO, a temporary restraining order. And this judge granted it pretty unequivocally and ordered, if you remember this, back on February 13th, ordered that no USAID employees shall be evacuated, and that Trump is basically stopped from doing anything related to this, saying all administrative leave, all USAID employees currently placed on administrative leave shall be reinstated, shall be given access to their emails and their security. No USAID employees shall be evacuated before the 14th and more. Then he extended it, okay? So it was pretty, wow. Trump came in, gave this order, and the judge just reversed it. We're all scratching our heads here going, Judge, that's a pretty horrific thing to do since you're not the president. And we were disgusted by that order. But then we fast forward, and today, look what we have here. A very curious decision in the case that just came out from Judge Nichols. And he issued a victory for the president. Let's see how it broke down. He says, all right, look, the case, of course, is the Foreign Service Association. It's basically a union for the USAID people who all got fired. They're all upset. You can't fire us. Yeah, we did. Says here, the original plaintiffs in this lawsuit are two unions that represent the employees of USAID. You can't fire our people. And they challenge Trump's executive orders, saying that there will be a systematic dismantling of the agency. And we're all sitting here going, yeah, we know. That's the point. So those unions initially moved for a TRO back on February 7th. The court granted it in part that very day. And we read it, we're like, what? Judge's like, yeah, you could lose your jobs. We're like, we know, Judge. That's the point. following full briefing on that, the submission of a bunch of other things, the court now concludes that the unions have not demonstrated that further injunctive relief is warranted. So they're not getting more out of here. Let's see where this goes. Said, in the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, Congress declared that the principal objective of foreign policy is the encouragement and sustained support of the people of developing countries and more. So to implement that, Kennedy that same year issued an executive order. They established USAID. From 1961 until today, they have been tasked by statute, right, by Congress, of assisting strategically important countries and countries in conflict, leading U.S. efforts to alleviate poverty, disease, and humanitarian need, assisting with commercial interests by supporting developing countries' economic growth and world trade, blah, blah, blah. Which again, you're like, what the hell are we doing any of that for? Until we get that stuff solved in our own country, what were they doing? Did they have everything figured out in 1961? Like, everything's so amazing here. We're just going to go give everything to the rest of the world. Anyways, more than 35 years after USAID was first established as an arm of the State Department, Congress then passed in 1998 the Foreign Affairs Reform Act. That gave the president 60 days where he could submit to Congress a report when he wanted to consolidate and streamline USAID. He's got to notify them. And we're always asking, wait a minute. Where did that come into in the Constitution that the president has to do so before he executes the law? He's got to notify you. It's not in the Constitution. These are just little strings that Congress attaches. The president executes the law according to his execution of the law. Otherwise, Congress is the president. They get to dictate certain actions. That's not their job, to execute anything. But Clinton's report took none of those steps. Said that instead determined that USAID will remain a distinct agency with a separate appropriation. So Clinton did something with it. Okay. So to be sure, then Congress, together with Bill Clinton's determination, it did not make USAID wholly independent of the State Department, right? So, because that would be also extra constitutional. That would be not allowed. We don't have a fourth branch of government called the USAID created by statute because Congress wanted to. For example, the judge writes, the FARA places USAID administrator under the direct authority of the Secretary of State. In this case, that would be Rubio. And some kinds of foreign aid are jointly administered by the State Department and USAID. But USAID is nevertheless considered what they quote here an independent establishment, right? Which is such a stupid phrase. It's just like the Patriot Act, right? Was it really patriotic to let our government come in and violate all our constitutional rights? No, but they called it that. Is it really an independent anything? No, it's not. But they call it that. And it gets its own money. Now, the Further Appropriations Act of 2024, for example, appropriates funds specifically for USAID and specific programs and provides that appropriated funds cannot be used to implement a reorganization or redesign of any agency without prior consultation by the head of the agency with the appropriate congressional committees. Again, that's a joke. You have to come check with your little nannies over in Congress before you execute the law? No. That's trying to create a co-presidency where you have to make these decisions. No. If you have a problem with somebody and there's something happening in the executive branch, you have to act with haste and finality. And that's what the executive branch does. That's why it exists. So they can separate it out to actually execute things. Congress can't execute crap. That's why they don't have that responsibility. And it's by design. We don't want them to. We don't want them to have a say in that. You pass the laws, and if you don't like how the president is executing it, then you can complain about it, and you can have that back and forth, that ebb and flow with the executive branch. You'll have to do that. Say, well, he should be doing this, and there are political consequences if he does not. And if you really don't like it, you can impeach him. By statute, that consultation must also include a provision of a detailed justification for any proposed action. So here they say, this is the judge writing. The day he took office, Trump issued an executive order eliminating a bunch of stuff. The executive order provides the following. The United States foreign aid industry and bureaucracy are not aligned with American interests, and in many cases are antithetical to American values, and accordingly mandates the immediate 90-day pause. Nothing's canceled. It's a pause on new obligations and disbursements. And he says new here, obligations and disbursements of development assistance funds, pending reviews of the programs for efficiency and consistency with policy. Now, at the end of that period, according to Trump's order, responsible agency and department heads are to make determinations on whether to continue or to modify or cease each foreign assistance program based upon the review recommendations. But the executive order also allows obligations and disbursements to resume before that. If a review is conducted and Secretary of State decides to continue the program in the same or modified form, then they can do it. Now, and it also permits the Secretary of State to completely waive the pause for a certain specific program. So then 4 days later, Trump issues the EO. Rubio comes out, issues a memo. He does it. Boom, pauses everything. All new obligations of funding are paused. The memo also directs, saying for existing foreign assistance awards, contracting officers and grant officers shall immediately issue stop work orders consistent with the terms under the award, right? So follow the terms of the agreement and get out of it pursuant to the terms of the agreement until, as you're allowed. Does the contract allow you to get out? Great, get out. If it doesn't, well, you're kind of stuck there. So follow the terms and get out until such time as we shall determine that that other contract comes up for review. But then Secretary Rubio, writes the judge, approved waivers of the pause for foreign financing for Israel and Egypt, and also for emergency food assistance, and also for legitimate expenses incurred prior to the date of the memo, right? For example, they were saying that there was, $500 million of food, like sitting in containers on shipping lanes or whatever. And we can't just let that sit there. So we got to pay for somebody to transport it, to deliver it. Can we do that? Sure, go. It's already sitting there, so we're not going to let good money go bad. Salaries, all of it. For U.S. direct hires, it was all allowed. And Rubio later also waived the pause to life-saving humanitarian assistance during the period of review. Okay, so all of those claims that babies are falling out of skies and dying of Ebola because of our limited and heinous cuts is not true, right? On January 30th, Trump appointed Rubio as the acting administrator of USAID. 4 days later, the secretary sent a letter to members of the foreign affairs committees over in Congress, consistent with the law. Says, we're going to initiate consultations with you about how we redistribute this money. And a substantial number of these programs did not benefit the American people, as your legislation mandated it did. Didn't reflect the priorities at all. Rubio also said he was delegating these duties to Peter Marocco, who we heard from in his declaration earlier this week. So in order to carry out that review process, but to also prevent noncompliance by USAID employees who were still siphoning out money, they said pencils down, which is a great way to think about that, right? Pencils down. Don't touch anything. Exam is over. Began placing employees on administrative leave. Of the approximately 4,800 direct hire employees of USAID who were stationed both across foreign and domestic posts, 58 of the 4,800 were initially placed on leave. Leave! By February 7th, 2,140 had been placed on leave. Then they determined that 611 were essential to carry out its statutory functions. This is what we have to have in order to comply with the bureaucrats in the Capitol, and had planned to place the remaining 2,014 employees on paid leave starting Feb 7. So then USAID, right, the government says, it has a careful plan. If you're overseas, here's our plan. That's according to Morocco. Namely, those employees will be required to decide within 30 days, do you want to come home or not? Employees who choose to remain abroad will be entitled to all the previous benefits as long as they're on administrative leave. They can do whatever they want as long as they're on leave, but they're probably going to be fired. So, as USAID informed its employees when we announced this earlier, you retain the option to remain at your post, even if you're on leave. And although employees on leave may lose access to certain systems, Morocco attests that they've got no plan to shut them out from overseas security resources when they're overseas. So nobody is being cut out or left out to dry like Obama did in Benghazi. Overseas employees who choose to return to the United States within 30 days can be accommodated. Their travel will bring them home. And the judge is spending time on this, just as a little side note, just to show, look, you guys come home. They're going to fly you home. You may lose some access, but you're not shut out from any resources. The judge is trying to identify irreparable harm. Like, was this crazy? Was this arbitrary and capricious? Did they just come in here on the first day and fire 4,800? No. Took them a little bit of time. Started their investigation, 58, then another 2,140. Then we whittled it down. And everybody else is on paid leave. You're on leave. You're still getting paid, so relax. Overseas employees who choose not to return within 30 days will have their travel coordinated and more, as we saw. But the court then made some orders, as we recall. The unions filed their first complaint back in February. They said Trump is violating the Constitution. He can't do this. He's dismantling the USAID without lawful authority to do that. And just before noon the following day, the day on which USAID had intended to place 2,000 people on leave, they moved for a TRO that would stop them from firing these people. In light of the midnight deadline, the court scheduled a hearing late that afternoon and heard it. After the argument, the court entered a limited TRO. Yeah, right. They said, don't fire anybody. The judge said, I wrote, we're keeping an eye on Kash. Still pretty quiet in that room over there. The court explained in their original TRO that while the union's request was styled as pertaining to the wholesale dissolution of USAID, because they said they're dissolving everything, their allegations of irreparable injury, which is required for a TRO, right? It's one of those 4 elements that we try to remember. Irreparable injury. It flowed principally from 3 subsidiary government actions. It wasn't the wholesale dissolution that was harming you. It was these other things. And we're back with Kash.
Thank you all for being here today to celebrate Kash Patel. And I want to hurry and get him sworn in because I'm the happiest person today ever.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Please place your hand on the guitar and raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear
I, Kash Patel, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties of the office of which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
We did it. All right. We did it, Kash. Nice, baby. Woo.
Wow. First and foremost, we were just with President Trump, and I just want to thank him. I know he's not here in the room right now, but what a ride we have been on, what a courageous warrior and leader he has been, and the faith and trust he has put in me to lead the FBI is the greatest honor that I'll ever have in my life. And to General Bondi, that sounds pretty freaking cool.
Definitely.
Pam, you're my sister, you're my mentor, you're my friend, you're my boss, and the confidence you have placed in me, I will never violate that trust. The men and women of the FBI will be led under your leadership through one standard, the Constitution. So thank you for entrusting me, Pam.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is effing crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
So obviously you don't get here alone. You know, I'm here because of God. I'm here because of my family, and I'm here because of my friends. And You're literally in this room because you made it happen. My sister, Nisha, and my nephew, Aryan, flew in from London just to be here. My beautiful girlfriend, Alexis, is here.
Shout out to
Yes,
Alexis.
I agree. My aunts and uncles are here. They've come from all over the country. I am living the American dream. And anyone that thinks the American dream is dead, just look right here. You're talking to a first-generation Indian kid who's about to lead the law enforcement community, the greatest nation on God's green earth. That can't happen anywhere else.
Beautiful story.
To the senators and the men and women of the United States House of Representatives, you placed an enormous trust in me, an enormous leap of faith. One that I didn't know that I could possibly earn back, but I'm going to spend every single day on this job doing so. The fact that you placed the confidence you did in me has inspired me to reach new heights at this job. I promise you the following. There will be accountability within the FBI and outside of the FBI, and we will do it through rigorous constitutional oversight starting this weekend.
Adam Schiff freaked out right now. Pencil neck melting down. What are we going to do?
It's great. We all used to live in the same freaking house. Yeah, I don't have any prepared remarks. I wish I could go around the room and, tell the story about how each and every one of you have magically touched my life to put me in this position. What a roller coaster ride it has been. I do know this. We are in this room together because you guys have a love of country that is truly inspirational, and it bleeds out everywhere we go. And if you look around this room, you see civil servants, you see warriors, you see attorneys, you see great husbands and fathers and mothers and wives. And we're fighting for the same thing, our future, our children, this guy. And there is no greater mission. I wish I had more words to thank every single one of you, but every time I look at every single one of you, you guys know the stories you can't tell. More importantly, the ones you can. This is, Pam and I were just talking in the back, and we were like, do you believe this? We were on the campaign trail together. We were attorneys in the first administration together.
It is pretty surreal.
Now we're here. She's the Attorney General. I'm the Director of the FBI. This is insane. And I don't really fully believe it yet. I hope to. But believe it. I'm just not here without you guys. And look, I know the media's in here. And if you have a target, that target's right here. It's not the men and women at the FBI. You've written everything you possibly can about me that's fake, malicious, slanderous, and defamatory. Keep it coming. Bring it on. But leave the men and women of the FBI out of it. They deserve better.
Do they deserve better? All of them?
And for those of you who think that there's going to be a two-tier system of justice, not with Attorney General Bondi. There's a singular system of justice for all Americans, and there will be accountability. And the reason that this mission is so important is simply the following. 100,000 people last year raped. 100,000 people died of CCP fentanyl overdose and heroin. 17,000 homicides. Violent crime is out of control. We cannot have a United States of America where that is acceptable, where someone dies every 30 minutes, where someone ODs every 7, where someone's raped every 6. That cannot be allowed to continue, and it will not be allowed to continue. Our national security mission is equally as important. Anyone that wishes to do harm to our way of life and our citizens here or abroad will face the full wrath of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And if you seek to hide in any corner of this country or any corner of this planet, we will put on the world's largest manhunt, and we will find you, and we will decide your end state, not you. We will uphold the Constitution. We will uphold ourselves to the Constitution. The men and women at the FBI, I have your back because you have the backs of the American people. You will be held to the same high standard. Any deviation from that standard will not be tolerated at this Federal Bureau of Investigation. The men and women at the FBI who make us safe deserve better, and they are going to get it with our leadership and your support. God bless America, and God bless every one of you. I love this country.
All right, so that is official, my friends. Kash Patel now in charge of the FBI.
Everyone go to the Waldorf.
Oh, I thought he was going to say, and here are the Epstein files, and just pull them out of his jacket and like flash them to everybody. Here you go. Here's the Epstein. All right, so hugs, handshakes. Yeah. All right, good ceremony. Oh, and one more thing. It was Reid Hoffman. Here you go. Here's the file folder, right? That's beautiful. All right, so Kash Patel, my friends, it's official. FBI now has a new director. We're excited to see what changes come quickly. We've already seen a bunch of changes from the other agencies. Some of the first directives come down are to delete your pronouns, and to stop your stupid brainwashing ceremonies and trainings and so on and so forth. So we'll see what happens out of the FBI. We know Pam Bondi's looking at the Epstein files. We're waiting for declassifications. Kash Patel said he wanted to turn the J. Edgar Hoover building into a museum for the deep state, but we'll see where he starts first. So great news. Congratulations to Kash. Congratulations to everybody who worked on that. It's now official. That's a big, big day. The Democrats literally have to be freaked out about this. I have not seen them so unified against any nominee like they were unified against Kash. They had even little poster boards made up, and they had their stupid ceremonies outside the J. Edgar Hoover building. The only other thing they were as equally mad at was the cutting off of all their funds, which came down from President Trump. So I think they know that they were abusing and using the FBI in a way that was criminal and illegal. And the same type of scam and fraud and criminality that we're seeing in USAID and all of the other agencies, you can guarantee was happening at the FBI in spades. So it's going to be like opening up, just a disgusting bedroom. What's in here when they go in there? That's why they're so nervous about it. So big day. We're excited about it. We'll keep our eye on all things FBI. Thanks for subscribing and joining us as we do. All right, so let's go back to this proceeding. Remember, just as a quick reminder, we're in the case brought by unions in the Judge Carl J. Nichols court. He already issued a TRO that ordered Trump to undo some of the things that he did. And now he's walking us through this order from the court. And he's basically detailing how USAID employees are not that harmed, is what he's been laying down here as part of his foundation. He says they came in, and in their complaint, they said all of USAID was going to go away. But that's not what actually they were saying. He says that what they were actually saying is that some people were on leave, okay, because obviously the whole thing did not get dissolved. So they were just upset about some administrative leave. They were upset about the expedited evacuation of employees, like they had to bring a bunch of people back quickly. And they were upset about the 90-day pause on foreign assistance. They said it was wholesale dissolution, but obviously that's not happening. So is these things. So he says, okay, well, we therefore concluded, based on the limited record, everything was happening like at midnight. So this judge is now giving himself an excuse for writing a ridiculous TRO in the first place. He's like, I had no choice. I was so stressed under pressure. He says that they demonstrated that there was entitlement to temporary relief, at least with respect to the first and second arguments, saying there could be irreparable harm, they could lose access to government security, and it could be maybe unlawful that the government was doing this. But the court reached the opposite conclusion, explaining that their allegations that the funding freeze would cause emotional harm, remember that, because that was part of one of their complaints, emotional damage we talked about here. And they were filing that, like, we're going to be very upset. We worked really hard for this job for all of our lives. Welcome to the real world. People get fired and change careers all the time. Emotional damages is ridiculous to say you're entitled to a constant grift off the taxpayer dollar and teat. It was too hypothetical, the judge said. So he kind of split it, issued a TRO, made Trump do certain things. So then the court accordingly ordered the government to reinstate, right, all USAID employees who were already on leave and to withhold from placing anyone else on leave, but it did not stop the funding pause in any way, the original order. Hire them back, but they can look at the funds. Now, the same day, that same order converted their motion into a motion for a preliminary injunction, set a briefing schedule. They came in. Then they issued another TRO, clarified some things, and they tell us what the legal standard is, which we'll fast forward through. The judge explains. All right, look, it is well established that when there's an injunction in government personnel cases, they're not orthodox stays. Like, these are a little bit strange. We use TROs all the time, but this is against government employees, so it's a little bit different. Saying the government has traditionally been granted the widest latitude in the dispatch of its own internal affairs, right? The government has a presumption that the government is doing well. Everything that they do is legitimate. Interference by the judicial department could lead to confusion in the management of executive affairs. 1898 case. They figured it out back then. This judge is just learning too. The Supreme Court has thus been clear in considering whether to stop actions that involve federal employment matters. Courts may not routinely apply the normal standards. Instead, they may issue relief only upon a far more rigorous showing of entitlement, not just because these people have emotional damage. Irreparable harm, he says, look, were you guys actually harmed? He just went through and explained, laid some foundation for us. Says because the basis of injunctive relief in federal courts has always been irreparable harm, like they have to show they're going to have irreparable harm, not harm that cannot be repaired at all. It's irreparable. It is helpful to begin the analysis here. Now, the unions, USAID people, they say that Trump's conduct has harmed and will harm them and their members in many ways. But to qualify for irreparable harm, it must be actual, okay, not theoretical. It must be certain. It must be great. The word is irreparable. Beyond remediation. There's nothing we can do. Now, upon scrutiny of this, employment-related injuries that they assert are not irreparable because you can get back pay and other damages, nor are they sufficient in kind and degree to override the executive branch here. It's like, duh! First, the unions argue that their members will face irreparable harm. Well, if we're on paid, the judge even notes here, paid administrative leave, like we're going to be harmed. Sitting at home, they're going to lack access to agency email and security, and that could cause safety risks. But he says, as I explained, is already reflected. The court was very concerned about this. That's why I gave you the TRO in the first place. It was actually motivated by that. I thought, man, did the State Department, like all these judges are so spring-loaded to be against Trump. They're like, he's like, people are probably dying right now. That's how reckless they are. Like, no, they weren't. Everybody had access to everything they needed. Nobody's falling out of the sky. Calm down. But the judge granted the TRO. I didn't know. But several subsequent submissions by the government persuade the court that the risk posed to the employees who were on leave while abroad, if there is any, right, the judge admits, is far more minimal than it initially appeared. You're kidding, Judge. Oh, so it was over-exaggerated and you bought it and now you have to walk that back? That's bad judgment. In particular, in opposing the motion, the government submitted a declaration from Peter Morocco, we read yesterday. Now they say, yeah, although employees are on leave, although they may lose access to certain systems, the pause has no plan or proposal that would shut them out at all from any overseas security resources whatsoever. In a supplemental declaration, Deputy Administrator also attests that overseas employees on leave will continue to fall under the authority of the Chief of Mission, who's already responsible for them. So they're going to be protected throughout all of their missions. Judge says, look, here's all the things they're doing. They get two-way radios. They can communicate. They get the safe alert system. They get messaging. They get USAID issued devices. They get the SCRY, the scary panic, situal awareness button. They can hit a panic button. They got geospatial tracking, diplomatic security responses. They're going to remain subject to everything, like travel, armored vehicle requirements, curfews, all sorts of things. So there's no harm at all, Judge. They were exploiting your sympathy, and you bought it. Based on the record, the court concludes that the prospect of plaintiff's members suffering physical harm is highly unlikely. You're kidding. Huh. And to the extent that these unions allege that paid leave will harm their members because they're going to remove security protections, like by tarnishing their reputations or preventing them from doing their jobs, those are the types of standard employment harms that are way reparable. They're not irreparable. It's way short of the irreparable injury standard. Yes, okay, your reputation might be bad because you're not going to be the chief administrator of the Ebola entourage of Africa or whatever. Where nobody knows what you do, where the money went, what you actually deliver, if you're just taking portions of that to blog or what. So that's not an irreparable injury. Go find another job. If you were wrongfully fired, go get back damages and you can settle that in a different arena. But the unions also say that their members will be irreparably harmed, but what they described as a mandatory recall notice. Again, the court was concerned that there could be non-financial injuries like harms to their health care, harms to their children's education, stuff that no future lawsuit could redress. But again, the government's additional submissions have convinced the court that their initial assertions of harm were overstated. Yeah, we know, Judge. Now, the record now reflects that no USAID employee stationed abroad has been or imminently will be required to return within 30 days. Rather, as things stand, if they're stationed abroad, they have a choice. If they want to come back, they can come back within 30 days. If they don't have to. But they're still eligible for agency-funded travel and return. In fact, they've established a 200-person plus team dedicated to coordinating those trips. And if those employees wish to remain at their post, they can. As long as they're on leave, they get all the benefits. But we're not going to pay for you if you drop out or something. And you might need to pay for an individualized exception, depending on timing and other things. Now, this recall scheme, says the judge, does not eliminate the possibility of financial harm. Like, yeah, they might lose some money or something. But as they point out, the unions, some employees may not receive exemptions. They may be required to pay for their own travel back if they choose to stay at the post. But those are money harms. Yeah, like travel expenses, relocation expenses, foreign service workers, all this. That's money. Those are not irreparable. It's just money. They just have to get money back. In the event that they are not reimbursed, well, they can just sue at a later date. Not a problem. To the extent that the unions are concerned their members could in the future be directed to depart or district, that's not imminent. So it's not an imminent harm. It could happen. Now, if that is an actual harm, sue us again. Now, instead, as noted, USAID via Trump has expressly informed employees that they retain the option to retain at their posts, even if they're on leave. And there is, therefore, a mitigation of any theoretical future harm. Now, the unions also, the judge is knocking these out one by one. So then they say, well, okay, here's how we're harmed. We're irreparably harmed because the money, funding got cut off and there's stop work orders. This is their big one. Now, the court previously explained in the TRO that limited Trump why their allegations as to the default on foreign aid contracts would financially and emotionally harm their employees, right? Financial harm and emotional harm. The judge is even referencing that multiple times. You guys are such pathetic babies. Grow some big balls. They were too hypothetical to warrant relief. In their reply, then the unions switched their tacks to argue that because of modification and termination of certain contracts may be unlawful, employees directed to make those changes will face irreparable harm because they'll lose the goodwill. All right, so again, theoretical may, and it's what's the harm? It's goodwill. That's not very harmful. You're not like guaranteed entitled to goodwill. But this argument doesn't lead to a new result, even though they changed it. Without any clarity on the terms of the contracts, their allegations of illegality from Trump, way too speculative. There is no irreparable harm here. Nor in any event does the court find it likely that a partner agency would attribute a contract modification to any USAID employee in their personal capacity. So if the government cancels the contract, like why does that harm the employee? It's not their fault. And the judge says it right here. If you think there's another harm that's coming down the line, renew your motion. Sue it later. But it's got to be clear. So at the February 12th hearing not long ago, the unions said that the funding freeze prevented the union members from paying their living expenses and their utility bills and their tuition bills. But as even your declarants explain, Rubio waived the funding pause for living and operating expenses. He wrote it in your filing. So that's like not true, according to your own evidence. And while Deputy USAID Administrator Morocco also acknowledged that widespread changes at the agencies could have caused delays in certain payments, they're working diligently to address these things. It's like your kid's not going to be pulled out of school either. You're going to get living expenses and reimbursements during your leave. So it's so much ado about nothing, isn't it? Every news story has been about people being pulled out of this and cancer treatments going here and the AIDS kids over there and whatever. Navy veterans, as we saw yesterday, it's like nonstop. And it's not that. It's the boy crying wolf again. Trump is doing these bad things. They're very just upset, mostly upset about the money. It thus appears that any non-payment was unintentional is going to be resolved, so relax. In fact, with respect to specific instances of delayed payments, the government even attested those bills will be settled in 3 to 5 days, like you're going to get your living money, so calm down. Finally, the unions assert that a number of harms were premised on the notion that beyond being placed on administrative leave, they say they're ultimately going to lose their jobs. Well, they're going to be fired, and they're entitled to jobs forever. But many of the harms that would result from such an action, like the unlawful non-payment, would be financial and therefore not irreparable. Like they'll lose their job, go sue for that, get back pay, and damages for wrongful termination. But those harms are obviously not imminent either. They're not a clear and present need for equitable relief. The government has reiterated it's placing them on leave, said that explicitly, for 90 days. It's been 1 month. Calm down. The audit of the agency's spending is what they're doing. And so for these reasons, the judge just took every one of their arguments out one by one. They have not established that their members would suffer imminent irreparable harm as a result of Trump's actions absent a preliminary injunction. So a bunch of crying from them that the judge bought the first time and then undoes it. Says, turning to the likelihood, right, the other element of the TRO and the preliminary injunction, will they succeed? Will the unions win further down the line? He says, well, it may be the case that at a high level of generality and in the long run, their assertions of harm could flow from their constitutional and APA, the Administrative Procedures Act, claims about the unlawful dismantling of USAID. But at the present, the agency is still standing. So there hasn't been any harm. The alleged injuries on which they're relying, seeking relief from, is essentially from their members' employment relationships with the agency. Now, as we just explained, the judge says, your complaints about the harms are at bottom archetypal complaints about changed employment conditions and their follow-on effects. Okay, it's all financial. The judges, this is just your standard whining. Yes, there are changes in employment that happen every day in this country. People get fired. They don't form unions and sue the government saying, I'm entitled to a job for the rest of my life and pay me my money. Even plaintiffs' allegations of harm of the broader funding pause are about money and their capacities as employees. Like they have to pay their own living expenses and stuff like that, and their professional goodwill. Well, guess what? Congress has already created other statutory schemes for this. Federal employees, if they have disputes with the federal government, they can use the statutes and the mechanisms that Congress created for those. They can go through the Federal Service Labor Management Relations Statutes, the Civil Service Reform Act. All this case law supports it. Under those statutes, labor disputes involving so-called civil servants who sue their own government, that's how much of servants they are. Hey guys, we're broke. We can't pay you anymore. What? Yes, you can. You are paying us. Because we're civil servants serving society, taking all of our money. Disputes in which the unions are involved are generally adjudicated by an agency outside of the courts. For foreign service workers, they handle it through these statutes. In that system, they go to the grievance board, then the National Labor Relations Board, and they can complain there. District courts, of course, generally have jurisdictions over civil actions, but it's already well established. Congress can exclude us from hearing these claims. Here, both considerations indicate that Congress likely intended these unions to be brought exclusively through another remedy. And they should do that. They shouldn't be filing in this court. They're not going to be deprived of any meaningful judicial review. They can bring their claims to the labor boards. Collective bargaining and all those things can be adjudicated there. It's also likely that a domestic USAID employee or representative could object to some of this, but their scheme was established. They define what a grievance is. It's broad. It would permit them and a whole range of actions that they object to now could be brought in that forum. So they should do it there. Nor in any event would the administrative bodies have the last word. They could always appeal these things. But here, they presented no irreparable harm that they or their members are imminently likely to suffer beyond the hypothetical future dissolution of USAID. And it is not clear why the speed of proceedings in the relevant agencies would be insufficient to address the only actions that have already happened and are presently ripe for review. You've got administrative leave, expedited evacuations, change in working conditions. You can handle those in the other avenues. Now, in second, and for similar reasons, the judge continues, their challenges to the government's actions are not wholly collateral, meaning they're kind of secondary. The consideration is related to judicial review. Now, they say based on their allegations of irreparable harm, they at this point seek the cessation of certain employment conditions affecting their members. Proceedings in any one of these agencies, MSBP, FLRA, FSGB, FSLRB, could all culminate in some sort of relief. They say that we can't go there. We're going to be harmed. But that doesn't square with their emotion. They say that there are irreparable injuries. We haven't identified any, so they can go over there. They also say that they're bringing claims within the scope of the agencies. Here, even if the farthest reaches of their lawsuit involve some separation of powers issue, puts that in quotes, and whether a statute or the Constitution has authorized the president to act in a particular way, the preliminary questions this lawsuit poses are employment related. And they should go handle them there. Agency adjudicators could moot their constitutional and APA claims entirely by ruling in their favor and could alleviate those concerns. If they are entitled to that, they can go there to get it. Now, in sum, it appears likely that the claims made by the unions in seeking this injunction are clearly within the schemes that Congress created to solve these claims. That is almost certainly true of their claims about placement of their members on administrative leave, expedited recall, and more. These are changes in employment conditions. These are not the country's melting down. And it may well be true of their claims about the funding freeze. And it could come back down. There could be harms, but all these things have been mitigated. They're even covering living expenses. In sum, because the court also lacks jurisdiction over their claims, they have not established a likelihood of success. Just losing at every turn. When also here we have to balance the hardships and the public interest. You kind of balance the equities, the final two elements, and the public interest. They're not demonstrating, these USAID folks, irreparable harm or a likelihood of success. We don't even have to look at the other factors. But it's worth noting, the record now indicates that those factors at the very least do not decidedly tip in their favor. They say, right, again, whining, harsh consequences will ensue if this pause is permitted. Abroad, they say, that there's going to be catastrophic humanitarian consequences. Okay, just big babies constantly using this language. It undermines their arguments. The judge doesn't buy it. They came at the initial stage, told them that catastrophic, we're going to die. Government gives them some more information. Not true at all. Saying that they cannot continue to administer their programs. Now at home, they point to the already discussed harms. They say this is a globally critical agency, blah, blah, blah. Now the court recognizes the potential consequences of the government's actions, but the government has also identified plausible harms that could ensue if the USAID are not permitted to resume. Saying, in the president's view, the U.S. foreign aid industry is not aligned with the American interest or world peace. So the government is undertaking a review, and it's determined the best way to do the review is to pause a substantial portion of the funds. According to the government, if you interfere with this pencils down approach, that would prevent the USAID from actually auditing things the way they need to audit them. So the judge says, look, weighing the union's assertions to the government's is like comparing apples to oranges. One side claims USAID operations are essential to human flourishing, right? It's so pathetic. You have to have us, or humanity is going to stagnate, and we're all going to atrophy and die. And the other side claims that they're presently at odds with it. It's simply not possible for the court to conclude. I don't know. Maybe you guys are doing good stuff, maybe you're not. Or whether the public interest favors or disfavors an injunction, he kind of punts. But because they haven't carried their burden as to the other two matters, and because the government has at least made a colorable case that these are essential to our policy goals, the final two factors are not in tension with denying you this injunction. And so, for the reasons explained above, the court concludes that these USAID unions and all these employees have not demonstrated that they or their members will suffer irreparable injury, absent my injunction, that their claims are likely to succeed on the merit, not going to happen, or that the balance of the hardships favor an injunction here. And so, big victory. The court will accordingly deny the union's motion for a preliminary injunction and will dissolve its previously issued temporary restraining order. Boom. Nailed it. So that's how it should have been from the very beginning. Okay, that is a real reasoned decision. Thank you, Carl J. Nichols, for that. Obviously, their catastrophic human flourishing nonsense was nonsense. Judge bought it at the outset, but the record has been corrected. So this is a big victory, and we're starting to stack these up here, which is good news, right? Because a lot of these claims are very much the same. In the same vein, this came out of the District of Columbia, and it's these people have essentially no standing, and it's not the official, holding. It's like they're not meeting the elements of even the TRO or any of the elements to secure the preliminary injunction. It's the same arguments, as we'll see. So big victory there. Pam Bondi was asked about all these cuts and all these rescissions and how it's so painful for them. Here's how she explained it today outside the White House.
Happy Friday.
Can I ask you a question, Caroline, very quickly?
Sure.
We're now hearing from constituents in some traditionally red districts right now complaining about what they say is the chainsaw approach and saying that it's been done very sloppily, the cuts to jobs and spending. How do you respond to that criticism?
I love how the media takes a few critics when the overwhelming response from the American people is support for what this administration is doing. If you look at the public polling, 70% of Americans, according to CBS, believe that President Trump is delivering on the promises he made. And there should be no secret about the fact that this administration is committed to cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. The president campaigned on that promise. Americans elected him on that promise, and he's actually delivering on it. And this is something that Democrats promised they would do for decades. President Trump is just the first president to get it done.
Let me ask you about the fraud, if I can. We can all have our own opinion about what is wasteful spending, and Republicans have praised the president for cutting wasteful spending, but fraud, of course, is a crime. So have you turned over evidence of fraud to the Justice Department, and when should we expect to see those indictments?
It's a clever question. First of all, I think all Americans would agree that funding mastectomies in Mozambique is not something that the American people should be funding, or DEI programs. I think think it's fraudulent that the American government has been ripping off taxpayers in this way. And
Nailed it.
we also do know there has been extensive fraud, particularly if you look at Social Security. In fact, according to an IG report from the Social Security Administration, there was $71 billion worth of fraud in one single fiscal year that we know about. And so that is a lot of fraud, Peter, that the government has admitted to. So this administration is committed to finding even more of that fraud, waste, and abuse.
To be clear, that $71 billion was from 2015 to 2022, so it wasn't in just 1 year, and it was
$71 billion.
But it wasn't in 1 year, just to be clear.
In one report.
And it was in one report over multiple years, from 2015
Great.
to 2022.
So are you defending $71 billion
Yes.
in fraud, Peter? That's a lot of money.
Yes, he is.
Far too much, and that's why this administration, why is the media so against cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from the government? I don't get it.
They're in on the grip.
We won't be deterred. We
why.
will not be deterred from people like you and the press who are clearly adamantly opposed to cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. But we know that American taxpayers at home who have been struggling with an inflationary crisis don't want their tax dollars going towards crazy DEI programs in countries overseas. They also don't like the fact that there has been $71 billion worth of fraud in Social Security and improper payments going out the door. That's a problem that needs to be fixed, and President Trump is going to fix it. That's your fifth question. Elena, do you have anything to ask?
Because you said something that wasn't true, which is you said that they have found before that they believe there have been tens of millions of people who are receiving money who are dead on the Social Security list. The same report that you referred to said that almost none of those individuals are receiving
Peter, did you watch
money.
the full clip of the interview that I did when I said that?
It,
and I said there are a lot of unanswered questions, and we suspect there could be tens of millions of people.
I'm saying the IG report
So you just said what I said is not true. In fact, it was true. That's a suspicion that this administration has, and we're committed to finding out the truth. Thank you, everybody.
Peter, stop your lying. I don't think that was Peter Ducey. I think that was some other dude from some other crap network. But he, of course, wanted answers. He got them. Pam Bondi asks a very good question of the media. Why are they so into fraud and waste and abuse? And you can see where the media is going with this. They want, it's like, well, you keep saying fraud. Like, under what U.S. code, what title, what statute are you going to charge them with? That's not exactly what we're talking about. Fraud can be that, can reach the level of criminality, but it can certainly be under fraudulent pretenses. Yeah, this is going to be in American interest to go circumcise the Sub-Sahara. All right. Well, you have to explain that to us, but I think there's other higher priority items that are more in America's national interest and deliver a much higher return on investment for our people who are funding all of it in the first place. So shout out to Caroline Levitt. Did I call her Pam Bondi when I clicked over? I don't think so. Maybe I did. It's Caroline Levitt. Amazing job responding back to the media. Now, as I mentioned, there is a pattern afoot. Another big victory for President Trump. This one brought by the National Treasury employee unions against Trump. Of course, when Trump wins, the rest of us win because he's executing our will through the power of democracy. But you can see this came out of the District of Columbia. This comes right after Judge Carl Nichols also issued a memo dumping another set of union cases that should have been dumped. He said, you guys are here complaining about being fired. Those are employment complaints. You got like 5 other boards you can go use to file your complaint there. Don't bring it into this court and demand a TRO or a preliminary injunction to try to stop the executive branch from doing their job. That was one. Now we got another one. We're seeing a pattern emerge. This is good news. You can see this case came out from the Treasury Union against Trump and the Treasury Department. And the judge wrote this, says, look, the first month of Trump's second administration has been defined by an onslaught. That's right. Don't you forget it. It's been one hell of an onslaught. We're just warming up, cracking knuckles. Kash Patel just came in. That have caused, some say by design, disruption and even chaos in widespread corridors of American society. It's affected citizens, and their advocates have challenged many of these actions on an emergency basis in this court and others. Certain of Trump's actions have been temporarily halted. Others have been permitted, at least for the time being. Now, these mixed results should surprise no one. Federal judges are duty-bound to decide legal issues on an even-handed application of the law, no matter the identity of the litigants or, regrettably at times, the consequences of their rulings for average people. That is right, Judge. Thank you for saying that. You don't get to substitute your decision-making for the president's. There are consequences to these firings, and a lot of people are not in good spots right now. I think they'll be in better spots when their lives are more productive, not working for the federal government, but they might disagree with that. But there are consequences for us in not making these reforms. So we have to always keep that in mind. But the judges don't get to substitute their judgment for Rubio, for the State Department, for USAID, for the Treasury Department, for the will of the American people. This case presents challenges to 3 of Trump's recent executive orders that were aimed at drastically reducing the size of the federal workforce. The unions are the National Treasury Employees Union, the Treasury Union, and 4 other unions that represent federal employees. They all came in seeking a TRO and a preliminary injunction. Again, they're kind of the same thing, just at different stages. One is like urgent, and then you want to see if you can formalize it. To prevent the termination of their members, right? They said, you can't fire all these probationary employees, and there are a bunch of probationary employees just gone immediately because they can't. They wanted to stop it. They said, you have to stop the implementation of a large-scale RIF, reduction in force, across all federal agencies. And you have to stop the renewal of the administration's program that was the deferred resignation with pay. So cancel his fork in the road program. Now, for the reasons explained below, this court will deny the unions the preliminary relief they seek because it likely lacks subject matter jurisdiction to hear your claims. The claims must be brought through the FLRA, Federal Service Labor Management Relations Statute. Go complain somewhere else. On January 20th, the OPM, Office of Personnel Management, often thought of as the Office of Other People's Money, which is our money that they siphoned off into Lord knows where, issued a memo directing federal agencies to identify all employees on probation. And remember, it's not like, bad probation, like you got convicted of a crime and now you're on probation, or you did something bad, so you're on probation. It's like you just got hired, brand new job. So you're on a probationary period to make sure you're kind of competent. Of course, federal government's standards are, what they are. It says probationary employees less than 1 year or less than 2 years in an accepted service appointment. Agency heads were directed to send a list of all these probation employees to OPM, and we're going to determine whether we want to retain them here or not. They also requested a determination from each federal agency as to which probationary employees they wished to retain, along with a short justification. And I think it was like 200 characters. Okay, it was like a small form. It's like you start typing, well, I'm amazing. I did this. And it's like, you're done. Like, what? I got like 2 sentences. What? Justify yourself quickly. The federal government employs an estimated 220,000 probationary employees. It's so many people. It's like 4 Wyomings, just to be clear. It's like 4 Wyomings. I'm sorry, that's not right. That's like it's like 1/2 of a Wyoming. Sorry, I thought Wyoming was 50,000 people. It's not close. It's like 1/2 of a Wyoming. It's still huge. It's 1/2 of a state. All right. I don't do math well. I shouldn't try it. Okay. Delete that from your memory. NTEU says they allege that a mass firing of probationary employees is now underway. It is, they say, but the allegation is not without evidence. Here, right? They got plenty of evidence. On February 11th, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau sent pink slips to its probationary employees. The FDA and the Department of Energy have cashiered well over a majority of their probationary employees. So FDA nuked, DOE nuked, Health and Human Services, Bureau of Land Management, BLM, EPA, National Park Service, FDA also sacked many probationary employees. FDIC, IRS, they're also intending to do the same thing too, and that's happening imminently. The IRS is apparently planning to fire thousands of probationary employees as soon as this week. That's good. Meanwhile, on January 28th, the OPM, Other People's Money, sent an email to all federal employees presenting them with a deferred resignation known as Fork in the Road. The original email went out. We read through some of it. Now, under the terms of the offer, employees who choose to resign would retain all pay and benefits regardless of their daily workload. They would be exempted from all in-work requirements until September. Take the buyout, go on vacation, get a new job. To resign, all employees needed to do is just respond to the email with one word: resign, and then get out. The Fork in the Road email further noted that OPM could not give full assurance regarding the certainty of your position if you choose to stay. So it's your choice. But if you stay, you might get fired. It's like Hunger Games or something. As originally announced, the opportunity to accept the offer was set to expire. Prior to the deadline, a bunch of whiny unions representing a bunch of whiny federal employees who are civil servants sue their own country, who says, we can't afford you. They sue us saying, I'm a great civil servant and you're going to like my service. You're going to like my servantness to you with this lawsuit. And I'm demanding attorney's fees too. You're welcome. The employees moved for a TRO asking for a stay of the February 6th closing. On February 6th, another judge, George O'Toole, entered a TRO, said the government, you cannot fire people at the end of the Fork in the Road deadline. Then on February 12th, Judge O'Toole dissolved the restraining order, denied any further preliminary injunction relief because the unions did not have standing to challenge the program, and the court lacked subject matter jurisdiction over their claims, right? Another judge says, guys, why are you suing? You're a union. Have your union members sue. The program subsequently closed on February 12th, as we saw, and all further resignations were no longer accepted. You made your bed, now you can sleep in it. Says, according to the White House, approximately 75,000 employees, roughly 3% of the workforce, resigned. They took the deal. So then, continuing the push to slash the federal workforce, Trump issued another executive order. That executive order included several directives to supposedly eliminate waste, bloat, and insularity in the federal government. It's true, get rid of them. Says, relevant here, the order directs agency heads to conduct a RIF, a reduction in force, consistent with the law that your agency has, and separate from federal service temporary employees or reemployed annuitants working areas that are going to be subjected to the RIF. The order also says, offices that perform functions that are not mandated by statute or other law have to go. If it says we have to keep it, keep it. But if it's like discretionary in any way, that's going to be prioritized in the RIF. And you know what those agencies are, or what those little divisions are? Diversity, equity, and inclusive initiatives. Any of those components are suspended or closed, and all components, because they're not mandatory, and employees performing functions that are not mandated also needs to go. So then they say, oh my goodness, Judge, they fired us. They say that they fired over 70 term employees from this, and many of these people are our members too. So the 5 labor unions all sued: the NFFE, the IAM, the IFPTE, the UAW, all sued. The unions brought constitutional and statutory challenges. You can't fire us. You can't give us this fork in the road. You can't issue this executive order. Who do you think you are? The President of the United States? They claim that these executive actions violate the separation of powers principles, which they obviously don't care about because they're asking the judge to usurp the executive power. They say they undermine Congress's authority to fund the mission of federal agencies. Yeah. They further claim that the challenged actions violate the statutes and the laws. You can't just fire all these people. Each union has dues paying members, and they're going to be impacted. To date, approximately 1,250 to 1,500 dues paying members have been fired. That represents more than $500,000 in revenue to the unions. Isn't that fun? They're like, well, we lost $500,000 because they're not going to pay our dues because Americans aren't employing them anymore. Isn't that great? Everybody's in on the grift, and we're always the ones getting screwed. 94% of members pay union dues via payroll deductions. Comes right off the top, skims right off the top. So dues members, for these members who have been terminated, stop with their final paycheck. Isn't that sick? That's why they're suing. They don't care about these employees. They care about these employees' paychecks and skimming a little portion right off the top. The IRS in particular employs more dues paying members than any other federal agency or department. HHS also accounts for a large number of members too. Thus, the unions estimate that the termination of all non-essential employees, would cause the unions to lose $15 million, or around 38% of all its annual dues revenue. Isn't that interesting? We pay the employees via our taxes, and as a member of the federal government, they join these unions for whatever reason. Like they're not ever fired. I mean, it's like, this is why they're all freaked out about this. Like, first time ever they've been actually fired. What? The unions skim $15 million a year off the top of this. Huge portions of that money from the unions goes right back into Democratic coffers, goes right back into Democrats, literally. So they're all just getting paid. That's our money. The NFFE, for its part, has thousands of dues-paying members who are probationary at the U.S. Forest Service, who the termination of them, they can't maintain their membership. Why should they be a part of your union at all? You know, to collective bargain against the government? The IFPT, that's what the vote is. Like, just go vote if you're unhappy with the government. Like, we all have a collective bargaining agreement. It's called a constitutional republic. But the IFPTE also has some dues-paying members who are also going to be fired. The unions filed their complaint 2 days later on Valentine's Day, no less. They moved for a TRO. They're like, we love our country. We are civil servants, but we're suing you for everything you've got. Saying, you must hire us back. You can't fire probationary people. You must extend the fork in the road and more. The court got the case on the 15th on a Sunday. That same day, ordered immediate briefing and oral arguments. Then the unions amended their complaint, saying even more people are being fired. At Department of Ag, Food, Nutrition, and more, firing people across the board. The court held a hearing on the 18th. And so now the court will deny these unions and their motion. It lacks subject matter jurisdiction over the claims. Like, this court is the wrong court. You cannot sue for this here. They must pursue their challenges instead through the scheme established by Congress under the Federal Service Labor Management Relations Statute, FSLMRS. That's where administrative review happens for these things. And if you don't like what their result is there, you can go through the Court of Appeals. And this is 2 for 2 now. Actually 3. We've got several of these stacking up. It's basically they have no standing. There's no jurisdiction here. You're in the wrong spot. But these judges have been granting these for the last however many weeks, saying, look, a temporary restraining order like a preliminary injunction is an extraordinary remedy. We can't just hand these out willy-nilly. When considering these things, we got 4 factors: success on the merits, irreparable harm, equities, and public interest. The court considers these in turn. It says, first of all, the unions fail to establish that they're going to win. We don't even have subject matter jurisdiction. So we're going to deny this and deny their request for a TRO and their request for an injunction. We don't even need to address these things. Let me just explain why I can't hear your case. Here's some background. This law was created back in 1978. It says federal employees can organize and bargain collectively against the federal government. It requires that unions and federal agencies negotiate in good faith. Establishes a scheme for administrative and judicial review, like their own internal courts. 3-member agency adjudicates these things. There's negotiability. It's encoded in the U.S. Code. And they resolve these things. Direct review of these decisions. So if you're unhappy with that, you can appeal. The D.C. Circuit has held this scheme is the exclusive procedure by which federal employees and their unions may assert these claims, right? And these unions knew that too. But they just wanted to sue to gum up Trump. Separately, the CSRA, and they, and how much this cost, how much time and money this cost us. These people are scammers. Separately, the CSRA also established a comprehensive system for reviewing personnel. You can go through any of these processes. They knew it, but they sued anyways. The government argues, well, no. Trump's government says you can't hear these claims because this is preclusive. The court employs the framework set out in Thunder Basin, saying the test is ultimately, if you go through another agency and you're not heard in this court, are you going to get a fair shake? They say, let's find out. Now, the unions don't dispute that the claim are the general types of claims that the Congress set up. It's about labor. That's set up to handle labor. Will you get a meaningful court appearance? Like, will you get due process and judicial review? Yeah, you will. They say that we won't. So they say it's here and now, but they can get a hearing. The harms don't resemble injuries elsewhere. They don't claim that the statute is unconstitutional. And so their assertion that it cannot recover its relief doesn't change the court's analysis. That might be true, but you can go through them. You have to make that claim there if you're going to get compensation or damages or whatever. Take it to them. They say that there's a constitutional challenge that they can't help us recover, but if absent any challenges to the procedures that they want to circumvent, I can't hear the claim. You got to go through there and say it's unconstitutional over there. Saying the Supreme Court explained that whether a claim is precluded turns on the type of employee and the challenged employment action. So this court's precluded from hearing it. You got to take it through the right forum. At bottom, the union's argument sounds in practicality and efficiency. But the D.C. Circuit was unpersuaded by this in another claim. There, they found the other area was more appropriate to hear this, and I can't hear it now. And so the court will deny the union's request for a TRO and for a preliminary injunction, and so it is therefore ordered that the federal government workers unions, 5 of them, and their motion for a TRO and a preliminary injunction is denied. So ordered by Judge Christopher Cooper, another victory from the United States District Court in Washington, D.C. And that's another big victory. So there's still a bunch of other judges out there who have bad TROs on the books, but this is starting to be good momentum. Okay, these other judges overstepped themselves way too aggressively at the initial TRO stage. Now that these are getting scheduled for preliminary injunctions and the Trump DOJ is able to build out the record, we're seeing what looks to be like a reversal. So good developments over there. Now, we also saw this woman, Jasmine Crockett, is out very upset with DOGE and all of these changes. And she was out on the Breakfast Club explaining that she doesn't really even care about America. She cares more about Canada and Mexico. Here's a little bit of Jasmine Crockett on this Friday.
Really been the one to call it out. The fact that I'm rooting for Canada and I'm rooting for Mexico a lot is really wild. But they are really the ones that are speaking truth to power right now. They can see what it is. And they were like, we are not messing with this crazy regime from Mar-a-Lago, and basically calling them thugs. That's what it is. But I'm like, y'all knew who he was when y'all elected him. So
we did. That's why we elected him. We did. We know who he is. We're pretty happy with the results thus far. So that was Jasmine Crockett. We also saw that Scott Turner is explaining that HUD and the DOGE task force that is helping to clear this up have been de-obligated and sent back to the U.S. Treasury so that these funds can be better used for the American people. Here is the Secretary of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner, explaining.
You find $1.9 billion in misplaced funds. Those funds are actually supposed to be used for administrative services to administer the services we have here at HUD. So what should happen is that you notify the Treasury Department that these funds are no longer needed, and so you can return them to the Treasury to use for other federal expenditures. And so we will now, going forward, have internal processes and controls and can take inventory of funds that are not being used. And with the funds we just found, the $1.9 billion, we've de-obligated them and turned them back over to Treasury so that they can be put back in the Federal Reserve to use for the American people.
Sounds pretty reasonable to have controls and checks and balances inside the agencies, but people like Jasmine Crockett aren't interested in that. They're rooting, in fact, for other countries. Now, here is the reason why. Carly Bonney, great person to follow over on X, got this clip for us over from Fox News, showing how the money flows back to the very people who are the most hysterical about the cuts.
$1 billion, $33 billion for Rosa DeLaRusa, Jerry Connolly, a lot of folks know $59 billion, and the leader himself, Hakeem Jeffrey, $91 billion. Look, to their state.
In politics, money is power. If you're getting money for your state, you're making your constituents in your state happy. That's who's voting for you. That's how you keep your job. So when somebody comes along, and Elon Musk famously on stage yesterday with the chainsaw, the point is he's there to make big changes. But the folks who count on the cash flowing year after year hate it. Now, they're going to have good reasons why they like all these spending programs. No doubt they're out there saying it. But the point is they don't want that system to change, because that system works for them.
I understand that they're going to get pressure from the stakeholders in this state. But when I'm talking with people, average day folks in the country of all political persuasions, they like the cutting because they're wondering why they aren't receiving some of this, these funds.
There's an intuition, and it's right. This money isn't their money, and it's not the government's money. It's taxpayer money, right? Every improper payment, every check that goes to somebody who doesn't deserve it, every check that puts somebody on dependency for the government, taxpayers know that's their money, and they don't want to do that. They want somebody looking out for this, somebody who cares about what we call the improper stuff. That's DOGE.
Professor, breaking it all down. If you,
DOGE,
I'm sure you're going to be talking about this.
DOGE in the House, all right? And this is pork barrel spending. This is the same stuff that's been a problem in this country from the very beginning. Congress spends money and they support themselves. But the problem is there has been no transparency, and they think that they can spend their $59 billion or whatever they bring back to their states better than we can. And what they're actually spending it on is not improvement for their constituents or for the American people. It's improvements for their power. And the grift is up. We've had enough of it. We can't continue to fund it, and we're not. So what we see are major developments, and even the judges in D.C. are starting to sound a different tune. We're going to be here continuing to cover it, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and becoming a member to join us as we do. All right. It has been a beautiful Friday, my friends. If you're just joining us, quick recap on some of the things we got into today. Obviously, we got Kash Patel, our new FBI director, and this was the swearing-in ceremony earlier today, and it was great to hear and have Kash take the helm.
Have a United States of America where that is acceptable.
Good stuff. So we covered that. We also heard a little bit about Trump obliterating Governor of Maine, Janet Mills. We also saw that Pam Bondi says that they're going to be taking a look at these FBI files and Epstein files and releasing those in due course. We then read through two good rulings out of the D.C. courts, seeing this one from Judge Carl Nichols that just got rid of the TRO, totally dissolved it. The injunction failed. The USAID unions lose, and the Trump administration can carry on. And actually, the judge made it sound like all of his crying during the first granting of the TRO was much ado about nothing. And now the government has shown that everything is fine. People are not dropping dead all over the world, so liberals can relax. Then we also saw this one from another judge, Christopher C. Cooper, who said that 5 Treasury unions all lose. They're all filing in the wrong jurisdictions, and they're making complaints about things over which they can't complain about. Not in this forum. They should go to another location and bring their claims accordingly. So great stuff today. Really good developments, positive developments out of D.C. And we're happy to hear that they're happening. Of course, we're going to continue to cover this. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. But now, let's hear from you. Let's see what you say about all of this. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope your week was outstanding. And I hope that your to-do list is empty, your stack of mail has been processed, and your email accounts are eliminated of all the nonsense. It's very great to have you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting our work with your donos and your memberships. We had a great members-only stream this morning, and you can join us as a member. You can go to watchingthewatchers.locals.com or sign up by becoming a member on YouTube. We'd love to see you. We got this one from Rick Donner. Yeah, what's up? Rick D, I think, is talking about the Eric Adams case. Yeah. Eric Adams, I was considering talking about that one today, but it's kind of a joke. Judge refused to dismiss the Eric Adams case. He's now appointing an outside counsel. This judge is just throwing a hissy fit. He's got no basis for any of this. He just wants to make it hurt and prop himself up. What's up, Lynn Marine? Lynn Marine just became a membo. Thank you, Lynn. We'll see you tomorrow on the Saturday members only morning stream. Hey, Karina is here. Che Karina in the house. Che Karina, thank you for bringing in 5 new membos, Karina. We got this one from Demol Slee in the house. We got James Bond is here. What's up, James Bond? Grifter Wannabe, Ragok is here, and Marty Smith Fan Sue in the house. Great to have you all. Karina, thanks for being a membo and bringing in 5 new membos. See everybody tomorrow. Hey, Rob G. Fan is here. Says, Rob, I've been watching Andrew Branca at night. Law of self-defense. My son asked me last night why I'm cheating on you. It's a great question from your son. I don't know. I have a similar question myself. Although Andrew Branca is a very handsome and intelligent man, so hard to blame you. What's up, Andrew? Hey, Bill Dozer says, release the damn list, Bondi. If exposing these monsters results in a bit of chaos, maybe society doesn't deserve the quiet. It'll balance out, probably. Yeah, well, I'm very much looking forward to seeing who's on that list. Bunch of people in Congress were extra nervous this weekend. They're all sitting around like, every time their phone buzzes, they're like, what is it? Oh, it's just a video camera. Oof. All right, what's going on? Sam in Texas. Hey, what's up, Sam? Thanks for being here full term. 9 months. We got a baby together. Says, if Epstein files are released, can we still indict? Yeah, I guess it depends on what is in it. And if there's enough evidence to indict, obviously. The other question that I would have would be a statute of limitations. So depending on the crime, has too much time elapsed, right? You had to charge somebody with crimes in a certain time period. But if the allegations are what we think the allegations are, there may not be statute of limitations on some of those crimes. So it depends. Like, for example, like if you get a misdemeanor DUI or something, right? They have to charge you within a certain period of time from the date of the offense. And his stuff has been going on for quite a while, like 2014 and before that. So we're getting over 10 years now. So it depends on the crime, depends on the statute of limitations with the crime. Depends if people are still alive or dead, like Epstein is now supposedly dead. Great questions. More will be revealed. Hermie Elf. What's up, Hermie? Thank you for becoming a supporter. Great to have you. Tony Hay Munkett says, it's not correct, but I promise to stop crying when I get my 2-year badge. I love badges. There is something about badges. I kind of like that too. It's like, I want that little thing there. Sign up for premium just to get that little bubble. I like it, Tony Hay. Thanks for being here for 22 months, my man. We'll see you at 24. Hey, 5 membos coming in, courtesy of Tony Hay. We got Remag Live. We got Gamer for Life. The overrated 600 Fargo is here. Ro DZ81 is joining. And Cody Harney in the house, courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Tony Hay Munkets, you rock! 5 membos. We love you, Tony. Hey, Billy Norton. Doge Groupie just joined up. Good to have you, Billy Norton. We'll see you tomorrow on the Membo stream. And grab the stream from this morning. We really deliver for our membos. We have tons of streams, and we have a ton of fun. Michael Stetson, you too. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us, and grab this morning's stream. Not a Fed says, nobody is falling out of the sky. Rob, that's a kind of a bad choice of words for this time. Trump is making planes flip over in Canada right now. I heard that. Yeah, Trump caused that. The airplane to flip over. Yeah. It is kind of not a very, a lot of stuff is falling out of the sky, it seems like lately. So maybe I'll change that, but it's, not because of Trump's cuts, at least. DJ Roach says, almost like the judge gave the TRO to pick apart their argument. That's one way to put it. You could say that. I think the judge just acted over aggressively at the TRO. They came in, we're going to lose everything. Just said, you are. Yeah, they jumped the gun. I think they jumped the gun. And he thought that maybe Trump, I'm actually a little bit more suspicious Like that is giving the judge the benefit of the doubt. Like you give him enough rope to kind of, and do the thing. But I think it was probably the opposite. Like the Trump granted it, hoping that Trump wouldn't be able to supplement the record with additional materials to support their moves. But they did. It's like, shoot, they did everything great. So we can't stop them. Like nothing's arbitrary, capricious. Everything was done by the book, very professionally. So nobody's dying. You guys are crying for nothing. Bobsco bringing in one new member. What's up, Bobsco? Bringing in D. Martinez. Great to see you, D. Martinez. Pritchie is here. Says Kash is in, so now the deep state are in deep doo-doo. Fred Pedamonte says said and done. They'll find $5 billion a day in fraud. Yeah, depending on what agency they go into. Londo, hey, what's up, Londo? Says, I am out of coins, bummer. Thanks to all of you that prayed for Lois. Her MRI was this morning. Lab report is normal. Praise God. Same day, Mayo Clinic is fast. Thank God. Amen. Good to see you, Londo. Great news. I know that was stressful. Hopefully you guys are doing something to celebrate the good news. 2 scoops. Bill Dozer says, USAID employees, you're going to take our service and you're going to like it. That's called, yeah, I don't know what that means, but Bill Dozer, yeah, isn't that fun? It's a fun thing. The civil servants are going to serve our country so well that they're going to sue us into oblivion and get damages out of all of us. Okay. Jesus Freak says, abolish all public federal unions. They seem unconstitutional. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of unions by default, but I don't know much about them. And there's many people here who say, it's actually been very beneficial for my industry or these things. But the federal unions, it's like they get to, wait a minute. They work for the federal government where they're basically untouchable. And they live there for like 30 years, producing virtually nothing. Not all of them, but many of them. Call themselves civil servants, live at our expense, get tons of days off, get unlimited healthcare benefits and all the other things. And then they get to collective bargain to get a better deal. I don't know. And I might be off on this, but I have never been of the mindset that government employees are civil servants. That's just been my perspective on it. I might be totally off on that. I have no idea. But I've just never thought that. I thought, oh, they're like government employees. It's like, kind of like that. But they think of themselves as like saviors and heroes. Am I wrong on that? What's up? Anyways, Jesus Freak. Dina, what's up, Dina? Says, good day indeed. Happy Friday to everyone. Congrats to Kash Patel. Indeed. Heck of a day. Things are going to get much better. Erica Warfield, what's up? Thank you for upgrading your membership, sending a little bit more love our way. We're grateful for you. We appreciate that. NY is over on local. Says, isn't Hochul's action in violation of federal law? Any deal with Mayor Adams to allow ICE into Rikers Island would be in concert with federal law. Hochul seems to be in violation of federal law. Can she be charged using some of the Reconstruction laws post-Civil War? That's a good question, NY. I don't know. That's a good question. We're not up to speed on Hochul today, so I'm not sure what the latest is over with her, but answer, yes, indict her immediately, I think is the legal answer, final answer. Let's check out X and see what's happening over on X, my friends. Then we're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party right now. Fred says, okay, so in the middle of the night, the landlord came into the house and ripped out the internet hardware after I just paid it and took the microwave. I'm using my phone hotspot to watch you, Fred Pedamonte. Man, Fred Pedamonte. I don't know what state you're in, man, but there are things like the Landlord-Tenant Act, and many tenants have like a tenant's bill of rights. So you might want to look into your property law there. I don't know if that's appropriate to do that. There's like eviction processes if you're delinquent and stuff like that. You generally don't get to go into somebody's house and rip stuff out of the wall, generally speaking. Don't know what your arrangement is, though. Not legal advice. Norm Hagen says, what's up? Government unions are uniparty fundraisers. I think that's right. Yeah, it goes right back to Democrats. Like, why are we paying for that? And they can skim off the top. It's ridiculous. Jody, both feet on the gas now. Let's go. Keep up the good work, Rob. Now back to the Rumble Ghetto where all the cool kids hang. God bless, brother. God bless you back, Jody. Thank you. Mary Cooley says, winning. Indeed, it continues. It does continue. Great to see everybody. Fred, thanks for joining the show on your hotspot, man. And we appreciate you being here. All right, so we had a couple final donos. Michelle says, could you do a recent history lesson sometime? Remember when Trump stopped travel from China and certain Middle East countries before COVID was a known thing? I do remember that, yeah. They called him racist and xenophobic. Is there more history that needs to be told there? I do know that there was, I think, a Daily Mail article today that said that there is a new COVID strain or something percolating in the bowels of bats in China. Don't think that was very appropriate to release the last time Trump was looking like he was going to win. So hopefully they're not doing that again. But I don't know what else we would get into there, Michelle. Are you prognosticating that that happens again? Is that where that comment's going? Yeah, that story makes your ears percolate. What's up, ELZ? Thank you, Michelle, for the nice dono. ELZ. Robert, I think you were and are correct in your assessment of Trump's tactical TROs. These court cases are playing out nicely. Happy Friday. $7 for luck. I think we've been pretty accurate on a lot of these. I think we've been first of all, they have no teeth. And then once the record develops, they're going to be reversed, or the Supreme Court's going to reverse them. Like, we're still not out of the woods yet. We still got Hampton Dellinger and some others, but like all of these things, they're way outside of bounds from the judges limiting the president. Like, these judges know that. They issued all these TROs and all those things. They knew all these other boards existed. It's ridiculous. So they were trying to catch Trump in some sort of an illegal trap. Remember, we called it an impeachment trap too, right? They're trying to ensnare Trump in something. So they grant these TROs because they want Trump to come out and say, I'm violating. And then Trump didn't do. They said, okay, we'll develop the records. It's okay. It's been a month. It's not a big deal. Like, I know myself especially. I'm just like losing my bananas over these judges, but it's not that long. Okay. Like 90 days in the context of 4 years, not that big of a deal. There are transitionary and litigation periods. And these judges now, these two of them today, have come out on the right side. Thank you, ELZ. Hey, Renee Sargent does video game live streaming. So check out Renee Sargent over on the YouTubes. Good to see you. MAGA, Make America Great Again. Great to see you. We looked at a little bit of it this morning. Fun streams playing, what's the one? Skyrim, I think. EOD Cookie says, unfortunately, Judge Amiri Ali just sided with the AIDS doctors. I saw that, EOD Cookie. Almost covered that one today, but I'm waiting to see what the DOJ does next on that one. So I'm waiting for a notice of appeal, waiting for a stay, waiting for some escalation on that one, and we'll come back on that one. But yeah, that's another judge who's not yet been brought into the constitutional fold, still acting like a lunatic. And he did side with the AIDS doctors. I read that opinion. I couldn't believe that opinion, but we're waiting for further on that one. We'll continue to cover that. But all right, my friends, it's great to see everybody. And thank you once again for joining us. We are going to pause there for the day. We're going to head over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com to debrief over there and hang out with our locals friends. Of course, members, YouTube members, locals members, we'll be back tomorrow, Saturday. We'll get into another stream on Saturday. We'll see what the Saturday has in store for us. We love hanging with you on Saturdays. And then that's going to be it for us on the weekend. Of course, it has been a heck of a week. Thank you so much for spending time here, going through this stuff with us. It is a historic time that we're living through, and I'm learning lots, and we're having fun. I hope you are having the same. Until we come back here on Monday, I want to wish you the most outstanding weekend you've ever had in your entire lives. Hoping that you spend time with your family, your friends, the people that you love, doing something good for your soul, your spirit, your body. Fresh air, sunshine, vitamin D, because when we come back here on Monday, we're going to need to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful weekend, my friends. I'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.